Opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Supernatural, metaphysical, paranormal. You know, all those things you've been wondering about? Are you ready to go deeper into the realms of the unknown? I hope you've got your walking shoes on, because life is an adventure, and this is the journey. Come on, let's go. Hello and welcome to the show, everyone. It's Wednesday night, and this is the Journey Radio Show. I'm Jen Cruz, your host, and hey, we're showing up as the She-Squatchers. I've got my two ladies on the line with me, Jenna Grover, hey,
Hello, hello, hello.
and we've got Tammy Trickle.
Hi, everybody.
Whoop, whoop. So we've got a new guest for you tonight. His name is Jason Weaver. He's a researcher experiencer who has been investigating the Bigfoot subject for over 10 years. He's originally from northern New York State, and he has called Southeast home. Oh, I'm screwing that up, so we're just going to skip it all together. Hi, Jason. Welcome to the show. Maybe you can tell us about your past, because I apparently can't see very good without my readers tonight.
No problem. Yeah, I'm originally from upstate New York, but in 1989, I moved to East Tennessee, and I made East Tennessee area my home until 2013 when I moved to North Georgia, or I live just about 35 miles northeast of Atlanta.
Very awesome. Very awesome. So you've been into Bigfoot. Tell us why and how it all started for you.
Well, I don't know why, honestly. I'm into this. I know how it started, and the way it started is a complete polar opposite as to where I am today. Pretty much, it's a 180-degree turn for sure. But I grew up on a small farm in upstate New York, and we had about 100 acres of property, but about 95% of it was wooded areas. Lots of forested areas, lots of natural spring outlets or water, lots of deer, lots of game everywhere, and little to no human activity other than your normal times, hunting season and firewood harvesting season and that kind of thing. So I lived a pretty uneventful life as a kid, a typical farm kid. I'm a big Johnny Cash fan. If you've ever heard the song Country Boy by Johnny Cash, that was me. I went and fished and hunted frogs and squirrels and rabbits, and I was the youngest in my family, and I didn't have friends that lived near me. So I pretty much occupied my own time when we weren't doing chores and that kind of thing on the farm. I was playing Davy Crockett and Cowboys and Indians and Army and that kind of stuff, making bows and arrows and spears and, all sorts of stuff that country kids do in the woods. And another thing that's big in the country, living in the country, of course, is berry picking, blackberries, raspberries, apple picking, that kind of thing. So we always did that. And blackberry picking, one particular season, 1981, I was about 11 or 12. I'm not really sure. My birthday's in September, but I can't remember when berry season is in New York. I don't remember when it was, but it was a berry picking season. Berries were ripe. And I was picking berries with my cousin. And my cousin was a couple years younger than me. He was actually technically a step cousin. His mother married my mother's brother. So I didn't grow up with him. I didn't know him my whole life and that kind of thing. We had just kind of recently become buddies. And then his folks built a house near where I live, same road. It was a dead end road, mostly family on the road. And so he and I became friends over the course of this particular summer, I believe. And we were down picking berries. And I don't know, have you all ever gone blackberry picking?
Oh, yes.
Okay. I always try to describe it for people, when the blackberry bushes are growing, they kind of grow, they'll outcrop out like this, and then they kind of cove in, and then they grow back out, and you pick around them, and, they're full of thorns. So you have to be careful as you're picking. And so my cousin and I are picking, and, the art of berry picking is to spot the cluster that has the most ripe berries, and you slide your little hand in there, and you pull down on the berries. And if the ripe ones are ripe, they'll fall in your hands. If they're not, they stay attached to the bush until they're ripened. So that's what we're doing. And, we're eating and picking, and we're having a berry picking contest between the two of us, who can fill their bowl the fastest. And we have those parquet margarine bowls, or, Cool Whip bowls, that kind of thing, because, blackberries stain things up. And Mom didn't want her good dishes in the woods. So she always sent us out with those little butter bowls. I call them butter bowls. And so we're picking, and as a kid, it's 2 in the mouth, 1 in the bowl, that kind of thing. And the sun's shining. It's a beautiful day, very devil may care sort of day, if you would. And if you can picture this, I'm picking on a part of this thicket, and it's a big, huge berry thicket. We had a lot of blackberries there, and it was my grandfather's property initially, and he had planted a raspberry thicket there as well. So lots of raspberries and blackberries, and we used to pick them both. So I'm picking on this one particular bush, and Jerry is to my left, and he's maybe 8 to 10 feet away from me. I was a kid, so it's hard to gauge, footage and time and that kind of thing. But I'm going to say he's just a few feet away from me. And if you can imagine my cousin, he had blonde curly hair, and he had thick glasses, and he was kind of nerdy looking. And he used to talk about having a black belt in the 3rd grade, and just kind of a goofy kid. And how kids are. Kids boast and brag and BS and that kind of thing. So, but he was we were buddies, and he moved into the neighborhood, and he was near to my age, and so it was kind of like having a great new friend. So shoot, he's a little weird. That's okay. I'll take it. That kind of thing. And so we were picking berries, and Jerry kind of went into a meltdown. And the way I always describe it is, if you can imagine a little kid standing there, shaking, whimpering, going, "I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home." And I get kind of weepy when I tell the story, because it's emotional for me. And so Jerry kind of went into this meltdown, and he started whimpering, and then he just drops his bowl, and he runs behind me. And we had a trail from the track. We had a tractor road, and then we could break off of the tractor road with a tractor, but it was basically a trail more than a road. So he caught that trail to the road. And when I say a road, I'm talking about, two worn tracks with a swath of grass between them. That was the road. Okay. It was a dead end road. But the road went down a hill, and then the road continued for a couple of miles, but only farmers used it and that kind of thing. So we call it tractor road. So Jerry took off, and he caught the trail to the tractor road. And I was like, what a weird kid. What's his problem? Whatever. And I'm like, more berries for me. I'm going to win the contest. So I'm picking, and I'm eating, and I'm like, yeah. And, as I'm picking, I'm working my way around this thicket, and I'm not sure how much time had lapsed from the time that Jerry took off until this next thing that happened. But I heard a really loud whistle to my right from the area that Jerry kind of ran to. So I heard I'm a terrible whistler, really loud. And I turned my head, and I looked, and I was like, knock it off, Jerry. I know that's you, or, that's whatever I said. And so I go back to picking. And as I said, when you're picking berries, you reach in, when you see a cluster with ripe ones, you reach in and you get your hand under there, and how many ripe berries you see. There's at least 3 or 4 on that little cluster. So you reach down, and you can feel them hit your hand, but you're not looking at those. You're looking at the next cluster. So that's what I'm doing. I'm picking berries, and I'm reaching in, and I'm pulling down the berries on the cluster, a little cluster. And I hear the whistle again as I'm reaching back into the berries. And as I heard the whistle, I turn, and I'm sticking my hand into the thicket, and I touch hair. And I always say this when I tell this story. I've touched a lot of things, picking berries. I've touched snakes sunning themselves in the thicket. I've stuck my hand right into bird nests. I've touched baby birds. I've touched live birds sitting there on the nest, adult birds. I've touched a lot of things. And sometimes it's creepy, especially when a spider or a snake crawls up under your fingers as you're touching. You feel the scales. I mean, it's creepy. I hadn't touched hair before. So when I touched the hair, I touched it for just a second. And when I felt it on the tips of my fingers, I pulled my hand back and I stood back from the berry thicket. And I'm not sure again how far. I'm going to say 6, 7 to 8 or 9 feet away from the thicket. I stepped back and I'm looking to see what it is that I've touched. And I see a dark figure, but I can't make out what it is at all. It didn't really have a shape that was familiar to me. I've seen, you see deer every day in the woods. I see deer behind my house every day. Dogs, that kind of thing. But this was bigger. This was much bigger. And I'm still trying to figure out what it is that I see. And what it was it was this creature, and it was squatted down in the thicket, and it had its arms between its knees. Okay. And when I would try to figure out, I'm looking at it. If you can imagine this, I'm looking at it. So when I would lean to my left to look at it, he would lean to his left and shove his head or her head, its head, whatever it was, I believe is a male, but shoved its head further into the thicket so I couldn't see it. And I'm still trying to figure out, and what it kind of looked like is, it kind of looked like a bear type shape, where a bear had stuck his head into the thicket and got stuck and couldn't get out, or like, Winnie the Pooh gets stuck in the honey bowl and can't get out. That's kind of what I was imagining I was seeing. So when I would lean to the left, it would lean to the left. And I'm trying to figure out, what is this? And I'm not really scared. I'm just inquisitive and curious. And I happen to look down and I see the 3 outside toes on its right foot. And then I see an ankle bone. And as I'm following up the leg, I see where the thigh and the calf muscles are squeezed together. And I see its big shoulder. And I see it coming up over here. I don't know if you can tell. I got goosies on my arm telling this story, but I can't see a neck. I just see this big muscle thing. But I scanned the feet or the foot and kept going, and then went back to the foot, of course, because it was the most recognizable feature, and it looked like a human foot. And when I saw, in my head, I'm a kid, I'm going, that looks like people toes, is what I said to myself. I imagine people toes. And then I see the hair, and, the ankle is bare, but I can see the skin under the hair. And when I see the muscles and I see exactly what it is, like all the wind left my body. I went into I can't breathe. I wet my pants. I just stood there and shook, and I couldn't move. I was frozen, and my fight or flight mechanism took over, and I dropped my bowl and I ran out of there. And I get home. My dad was at work. My mom was home. And I'm like, Mom, I saw a monster. I saw a Bigfoot. Of course, I was a lot more excited than I am now, and my mom, I always describe my parent. I love my parents. My father died a year, the following year after I had my encounter. My father died. I'll get into that here in a little bit, but I tell my mother what I saw, and my folks, they were born in the 30s. They grew up during the Depression, and they're very pragmatic people, realists. And I always state, their idea of monsters was hunger and Hitler. You follow? It wasn't, creatures in the woods, Frankenstein, all that. That's nonsense. They didn't have time for that kind of thing. The real scary thing is the Nazis. That was the mindset. And so I tell my mother what I saw, and my mother just, I'm not mad at her, but bless her heart, she basically discounted it and tried to comfort me as best I just, kind of just played it off as, oh, you saw a deer or you saw a dog, or one of the neighbor kids is messing with you. And, I don't know any neighbor kids that were covered head to toe in hair. And so I basically had to deal with it, which was hard. I was traumatized by the encounter. I started having a residual nightmare where I'd wake up sweating, scared, crying because of Bigfoot. And my encounter with this creature was by no way, shape, or form terrifying, or it wasn't aggressive towards me. I might have heard a couple of maybe snorts or growls. I did hear something. Don't really know what it was, but I mean, it did make a noise, but it wasn't threatening to me in any way. But the Bigfoot in my dream, there was a grove of trees. My house was next door to my grandmother's. There was just a grove of trees between the houses. And in my dream, I'm trying to get my grandmother's house. And there's a Bigfoot charges out of this grove of trees. And it's like a silverback gorilla. It's coming at me on all fours. And it's got teeth like this. And they're bloody. And, it wants to eat me. This is my dream, My experience was nothing like that. But I explain that because, my psyche kind of took on a whole other deal, especially when you find out that a mythical creature, as Dr. Matthew Johnson put it when he described his encounter, a mythical creature jumped off pages of fairy tales and books and landed in my backyard. So I would have these nightmares, and I'd wake up crying, and my mother would be like, what's wrong? And I'd be like, Bigfoot. And my mom would be like, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You got to stop this nonsense, stop thinking about it. And, how does a young kid do that? So as I said, we lived on the farm. We used to harvest firewood out of the woods. And my dad would say, look at my brother and I and say, we're going to the woods. And, I didn't want to go to the woods. And I would put up my dad used to get so mad at me because I put up such a fight. And sometime before all this, I have an older brother. He's 6 years older than me. And he had cut a tree down. He was always, him and my dad would use the saws and the axes, and I would pile brush. And, when we'd chunk it up for firewood, I would help stack it or, load it, whatever. But my brother dropped a tree on me accidentally. Okay. The very top just knocked me over. I didn't get hurt or anything. It just knocked me over. It wasn't a big tree. But my dad was real mad at my brother. He really lit into my brother over it. So I'm not sure. I'm speculating, but I think my father assumed that my fear of going to the woods was because my brother had dropped this tree on me. And it had nothing to do with that. So my dad made a deal with me. If I went to the woods and did what I'm supposed to do, I could stand by the truck. So I would stand by the truck, and they would limb the trees. And when they had all the limbs cut off, I'd run over from the truck and stack them up and then run back to the truck. Sometimes I'd lay under the truck, but I was terrified. So time went on, and I still had those nightmares. And so, like I said, we roll into the next year. My father died in June of the next year, and my father and my mother were very close. My mother grieved for my dad very, very deeply, and she didn't lose it or anything, but my mom kind of dropped out for a bit where I had to put away silly things. So when I'd have my nightmares and stuff, I had to deal with them, and I didn't realize what I was doing, but I was stuffing them, and I always say this, I don't blame Bigfoot for all my problems, all my adult problems. Okay. Because I had a few, not problems, but I've had some stumblings here and there. We all do. But I don't blame Bigfoot for that. But my ability to deal with things and on an emotional basis was deeply affected. And I learned to stuff it. And when I got older and, into my college years, I learned to stuff it with booze and drugs and, and that's how I dealt with things on an emotional level. People die, I drink and party. I have a breakup, relationship ends, I drink and party. That was my way of handling things. And, I eventually learned how to, work through that. I went into rehab in the early mid 90s and, I developed a way of living, and that kind of stuff doesn't hinder me anymore. But my ability to deal with things on an emotional level are still affected. I've been married and divorced 3 times. I've had dealt with relationship issues, and again, I'm not blaming Bigfoot, but my way of equating or dealing with emotional things, this permeated into every venue of your life, your professional life. There's a lot of things. So I was fearful of Bigfoot all those years, and I happened to be my youngest son. He's 15 now, but he was probably 3 years old at the time, and he was part of a church program, and he was practicing for a church program one afternoon at the church. And I was sitting in the last pew of the sanctuary, and there was two older gentlemen standing behind me having small talk. And I wasn't eavesdropping, but I heard their conversation, and one of them was a park employee, a retired park employee. He wasn't a ranger, but a park employee. And he had said to the other one, he'd said, "Oh, did you hear somebody saw Bigfoot up at Indian Boundary Campground?" And there's a campground near us, near where I lived at the time, called Indian Boundary. And it's actually a kind of a hotbed. The BFRO I found this out since then, of course. The BFRO has investigated the area there, but that little conversation did something. It flipped a switch in my brain, and lo and behold, I start having these nightmares again. Okay, so here I am at 40 years old, having nightmares, waking up scared, fearing Bigfoot, and I got tired of it. And my last wife and I, we've been divorced for a few years, but at the time, she and I were in intense couples counseling, where she would go one day of the week as an individual session. I would go once a week, and then we would go once a week. We did this every week for like 9 weeks. Okay. And on one of my individual sessions, I looked at the therapist and I said, and it was just a day or two after I'd had one of these nightmares. And when I'd have these nightmares, and I still have them on occasion, but they stay with me. They linger, for a couple of days. It takes me a bit to get over it. And I went into the couples counseling, and I said, "Look, I got to talk to you about something that has absolutely nothing to do with why we're here." And I spilt the beans, just a professional, which was a big leap for me, about my encounter as a child. And he didn't discount me or negate me in any way. He said maybe I should try to find someone that's had similar encounters or that kind of thing and talk about it. So for the first time at 40 years old, I Googled Bigfoot, and that led me. I was on Facebook at that point. This was 2009, I think. And I was on Facebook, and I found a group that led me to another group, and and so on and so forth. I started to come out of my shell, so to speak, and it's been 10 years or 11 years. I solo camp now. I stopped all activity as a kid up until I was 46 years old. Anything that had to do with being in the woods or a potential opportunity for me to be alone in the woods, I would totally avoid. I'd have buddies that say, "Hey man, we're going fishing after work. You want to go?" And I'd be like, "Well, where are you guys going?" And if they said, "Oh, we're going to boat fish over here, or we're going to dock fish over here," I was down for it. But if they said, "Oh, we're going to go up into the Cherokee National Forest and we're going to fish the river back down," I'd be like, "Oh man, I just remembered I got something I have to do." That's how I'd navigate life, to avoid those things. And in retrospect, I lost a lot of opportunities to have a lot of good, to live and have a lot of good times. But I've made up for it since. And, to this day, don't get me wrong, I'm still afraid, but I solo camp. Well, I go with my dog. I solo camp today, and I go to areas they're very active, and I shake. I shake when I quake in fear. But, at night the areas that we camp in, they come right into our campground. They come right into the campsite. They mess with our stuff. They pick up the dishes. They walk out with things. They take things. And I have to put my earbuds in and listen to music or podcasts or something, so I don't hear them in the campground, because I'm likely to go nutty, and run out of there. But anyway, that's the long of the short of it.
Wow, that's incredible. And what state are you currently in?
I'm in Georgia.
Georgia. Okay. That was the part that I didn't catch before. That's such an incredible story, and I can totally relate with that happening. I can totally relate with that happening. Something happened not that many years ago. I was out at the lake and I was trying to fix this canvas covered garage tent thing that we had set up, and I thought my chocolate lab was in the bushes chasing after a squirrel, as the bush was just shaking and shaking and shaking and shaking. And I was like, "Are you getting them? Are you getting them?" He never would catch them, but he always thought he was gonna. and I just looked over a couple times and saw this dark thing in there that was shaking the bushes, and they were the gooseberry bushes, and I was like 10 feet away from them. And all of a sudden I hear this clunk, 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 and it's the sound of the dog's feet running on the boardwalk off the water. And then I realized that's not the dog in the bush. And so I looked and I'm like, oh, it's a bear. He was eating the gooseberries. So I was, the bear didn't care that I was there. He was just going after the gooseberries. But I can totally relate to like running into a big creature where there's
totally
bears.
Unexpected. I mean, it's just completely unexpected. And,
yeah, totally.
I've had people say to me, that's all that happened. You touched it, saw it in the bush, and you were that terrified. And yeah, I was. Your whole reality changes. I mean, it's once you see something, you cannot unsee it. And and I've been called all sorts of crazy, but if if this is what happened, like it or not, this is my experience. And it took me a long time to talk about it, but I equate it to recovery. As I said, I had some issues in the mid 90s, and I went into rehab and I learned different ways of dealing with things. And Bigfoot experiencers, Bigfoot people that have had encounters, people that have seen them, it's a fellowship, and there's a group of people, and it's a small group, but there's a group of people that truly understand and empathize to what you deal with. And that was huge for me, because I had, like I said, I had a lot of obstacles in my life, but once I finally embraced my experience for what it was and said, I'm going to talk about this. You can think I'm crazier and a poop house rat. I don't care, but this is what's happened, and when I finally embraced it, my life kind of fell together. Everything, the synchronicities that have happened since I've embraced my experience for what it is. It's been amazing. It's been scary too. I've had a lot of scary things happen too, but Bigfoot's a great connector. I don't know, if anybody's ever said that before, but Bigfoot has a tremendous way. The phenomena, the subject, whatever, is a tremendous connector. I've met some amazing people that aren't even in the Bigfoot realm. Travis Walton. I got to meet Travis Walton, David Politis. I mean, I get to meet these people. Bob Gimlin. Of course, he's Bigfoot, but to meet Bob Gimlin, he's the Johnny Cash of Bigfoot, as far as I'm concerned. And I got to meet him a few years ago at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. I tried to meet him during the day, when they'd sit at their tables and shake your hands, and I could never. The line was always so long. I'd just get up there 4 or 5 people away, and they'd have to go, another speaker or whatever. And Tom Yamarone was Bob's helper or handler at the time, and Tom spoke to me that evening. He and I are pretty good friends, and he said, "Did you get to meet Bob?" And I'm like, "No." And I told him my conundrum with the lines. And he's like, "You want to go to breakfast with us tomorrow morning?" I'm like, yeah, So the next morning, Tom and Bob and I went to breakfast, and I sat down and I had Bob all to myself pretty much. A couple people come up and say hey or whatnot, but we talked about everything but Bigfoot. We talked about Yakima apples and Evel Knievel, and we talked about all sorts of stuff. But to think that I've gotten to meet Bob Gimlin, that's pretty cool. Bob's a pretty cool dude.
He's one of my favorite people. I tell you what, that man is so charming. If you could bottle that charm, we love Bob.
Yeah, we exchange Christmas cards every year. I love getting my Christmas card from Bob. Bob's a good guy.
Oh, so
he's
sweet.
Not as easy to get on the phone anymore since he's accumulated all this fame and fortune. You know, he's hard to get on the phone anymore. I'm saying that if Bob's ever watching this, because I call him not a lot, but every time I call him, I can never get him on the phone. So, but he's a great guy. Don't get me wrong. And if you hear that, Bob, I mean that completely. I love you, man. But I mean, he's a tough old bird. Let me tell you. You know, breaking horses in his 80s. I don't know how much horse breaking he does now, but you know, he's an amazing cat. You know, he came to Georgia to camp with us in 2016, and we had him all to ourselves, to our little group in Georgia. And you know, he come and hung out with us at night, and it's great to just see him off a stage talking about all the minutes leading up to and past, you know, the Patty experience. You know, Bob's an awesome guy. Nothing but great things to say about Bob.
Awesome. Well, there we're at the half mark of the show, so we're going to have to go to our 2-minute break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned, everybody. Awesome. Good job.
Yeah. You know, you're talking about people saying that it's not a big deal, you know, that you had your experience, but you touched one. How many people, even Bigfoot researchers, can say that they touched a Bigfoot? Well, so that is a huge thing.
It is. I realize that now. I didn't realize how big it was when I started talking about it. You know, I mean, I don't sit here and go, yeah, it's kind of cool. It's hard for me to do that, you know, but it is unique. I do realize how unique it is, you know, and you know, for anybody that wants to know what it felt just like horsehair. It felt like horse mane. That's exactly what the hair, maybe a little stiffer, a little coarser, but that's pretty much what it felt like, was horsehair. And there was no smell. I didn't have any smell or anything like that. But you know, my brother and his friend, they had a run-in with some the summer before, and like I said, my brother's older than me, and he still won't talk about Bigfoot. In fact, he'll say there's only two things in the world he's afraid of. That's our mother and Bigfoot. They're the only two things that he's afraid of, you know. And
wow,
to this day, he still doesn't talk about it, you know. But it is what it is. He was down here during the crisis. He came down to help us move. We closed on a house in March. He lives probably 200 yards from where I had my encounter that I talked about tonight. He's still right there, and he has things that happen all over his property. But yeah, he was down here in March, and I wanted to take him to the Expedition Bigfoot Museum. He's like, nah, I really don't want to go there. He wants nothing to do with it, you know. And
all right,
it is what it is.
Show's coming back on. We gotta wait for the cue.
Oh.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is the Journey Radio Show, and hey, we're the She-Squatchers. Won't you check us out online at She-Squatchers.com, and check us out on Facebook too. Give us a like and follow us there for all the up-to-date what's going on with us. And check out our YouTube channel at She-Squatchers Official. Please subscribe and follow us there. And so we're back to the show. We've got Jason Weaver with us tonight. He's coming to us from Georgia, Bigfoot experiencer and researcher now. Jenna's got a question, I guess. She's on mute.
Sorry about that. I do have a question. This is a common problem with me, as everyone knows. No, you were talking about you had these residual dreams, and I was just wondering, do you think that was Bigfoot communicating with you, or do you think maybe it was just your imagination?
No, I think it was my psyche scarred or whatever. I think, you know, I don't have it as frequent as I used to. Sometimes I do. I don't dream as much as I used to. Maybe it's because I'm tired all the time. You know, you get past 40, you're tired all the time, you know. So that might be what it is, you know. But no, I think it was just the way I reacted to it. I was talking with Tammy a while back, a couple of days ago, and you talk about Bigfoot communication. I would like to talk about something if it's all right. Do you have anything else you want to ask me before I talk about this? Or, I mean, it's y'all's show, so I don't want to, you know, I don't want to step on anybody's toes as far as questions are concerned. But there's an area here that we camp at quite often. It's the same area that Bob Gimlin had come down to camp with us at a few years ago. And this was actually the same weekend that Bob was there. Normally what I do is we usually camp Thursday through Sunday, and usually I'll break camp on Sunday, And once I get everything packed up and put in my vehicle, I've got a couple hours drive from the campsite to home. And I always take my dog Cash with me. And Cash is he's the ultimate Bigfooting dog. He's a great Bigfooting dog. If we have him around us, we do night walks and all sorts of stuff where we go. And if he senses something, he whisper barks, which is really cool. You know, I think he knows. I better not make too much noise, you know. But if you happen to run into or speak to any of my footing friends, as I call it, Tom Cantrell has gone camping with us. He knows Cash. He'll attest. Cash is he's a great dog. He's a great character. Well, usually I'll walk him because it's quite a bit of a drive for him, and he's getting up there, and so I want him to be rested and able to travel. So we usually walk so he can do his business. And I was on this particular trail. This trail that we're on, we have had a lot of activity on there. In fact, it was Keith Bearden wrote about it in a book that he has called Friends of the Forest. I think it's called Friends of the Forest. I can never remember the name of Keith's book, but Keith Bearden's book, where we had an eye shine incident that happened. And this was the same trail. And I'm hiking the trail, and Cash he's off the leash. He's just running around doing what he does. And I keep seeing in my right peripheral vision, I keep seeing what I think is a crow flying from tree to tree. I keep seeing a black flash. And I'm not paying too much attention, but when I'd look over, when it catch my eye, I just go, you know, where's that crow? Where'd he land? Because I could never see him sitting on a branch or whatever. The crow was never there, but my eyesight was telling me it was a crow. Well, I happened to glance over to catch a figure. I don't know how tall it was. I'm going to say a little bit taller than the average man, a little bit above 6 foot. But I caught this black, dark figure squat down. And so all I'm seeing now is just the very top of its head. And I see it. And what I'm doing, if you can imagine this, is I quickly think of the idea that I'm going to pretend I'm continuing on the trail, but I'm not going to walk. I'm going to look back over there and see if I can catch this thing moving or whatever. So that's what I do. I stick my foot out to act like I'm walking, and I immediately turn. Well, I turn in time to catch it squat down. And when it moved and I saw the crown of its head, under my breath, I said it out loud, but under my breath, and I'm going to clear it up for the children that might be watching this. I said, no bleeping way is what I said. No bleeping way under my breath. And as soon as I said that, I hear in my head, I start hearing my own voice going, no, 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 no. And I'm like, and it's almost like when your ears ring, it's that same sensation, but I'm hearing no, no, no. And as I'm hearing the no, 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 it splits into two tones. So now I'm hearing two different tones, and it's going to the rate of my heartbeat. Okay. So it's going, and my heart is racing because I'm scared. So it's going no, 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 but it's two different tones. And as a musician, I'm listening to the tones. I'm hearing the harmonics, and then it split into 4 tones, and then 8 tones. Multiple tones. It kept splitting, and they're all going at the same rhythm. But at its peak moment, I'm hearing this no, and it's going, no, 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 and it way in the background, I hear like a crazy one going no, 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 and it's like the only way I can describe it is that I'm hearing colors. Is the only way I can describe it is I'm hearing colors, and I'm looking at my dog to see if he's hearing this, and I'm staring in. I don't realize I'm kind of in a trance, but I'm staring at my dog, and my dog is looking around like, what are we waiting on, man? Let's get out of here, and I'm stuck there. And then it just stops. Now, the entire time that I'm having this no going on, my body is vibrating. My teeth are chattering. My teeth vibrated so badly that I had grit in my teeth, like I'd been eating sand. That's how fast and how, I don't want to say violently, but that's how vigorously my teeth are chattering. I felt nauseated. And, when it initially stopped, I was terrified. So I'm like, let's get out of here. So Cash and I, we book it down the trail. We get in the car. I'm still feeling all these physical effects of this thing. And I drive home. I don't remember a bit of the drive at all. Get to my house. How was your trip? Tell my girlfriend, I don't, not much. I don't feel well. And I didn't feel well for days. And I managed during this a couple of days afterwards. You're camping in Georgia, you're going to find ticks. I found ticks on Cash, and I found ticks on me, and I don't feel right. And I'm thinking maybe I've got Lyme disease. That's what I'm thinking. Maybe I don't. So, but I don't have Lyme disease. I go to the doctor. I think I have Lyme disease. We don't have Lyme disease in Georgia. I think we do, but okay. Well, this feeling goes on for weeks. And be honest with you, I still feel the same way today. I still have the same. The only way I can describe it is that when that no stuff was happening, it felt like I had been separated on a molecular level and put back together, and either something was missing or something extra was added. And I throw that in because, you hear this a lot. This has become kind of a passe expression. Everybody says, "Oh, I'm an empath. I'm an empath. I'm a sensitive." Okay, well, I am. I didn't know that that's what I was, but that's what I am. And I'm very in tune with people, especially my family. I live in a house full of females. I'm in tune with all of them. I know when to stay and when to go. I'm in tune. And but I started, weird things were happening to me. And I'll give you an example. I was sitting in traffic one day, heading to work. It's this beautiful sunny day. I'm in the left, it's a 2-lane road. I'm in the left lane at a stoplight. It's a beautiful day. I got my coffee, the radio's on, I got my sunglasses on. I'm on time, which is great in Atlanta. I'm on time. And all of a sudden, this huge wave of dread, grief, whatever you want to call it, just rushes over me. There's no music on the radio that affects me emotionally or anything, but I have tears streaming down my face, and I feel like I want to just cry, and I'm like, what is going on? So I take my sunglasses off and I wipe my eyes and I look around because I don't want to be, I'm standing at, and I happen to look to my right, and in the vehicle to my right was a young girl, 20 something, mid 20s, and she is crying her eyes out, like, her grandmother's died. She's broken up with her boyfriend, something. And when I looked at her and I realized that that's where this is coming from, my whole body goes and just starts like a bell. My whole body starts to ring or vibrate, whatever you want to call it. I have never experienced anything like that before. And I had an experience prior to this experience I had in the woods. Now, I don't know what it was that I saw. I can't say definitively I saw a big, hairy hominid. I saw a dark figure. I don't know what it was, but something, I've told this story to other people, and somebody said, "You got downloaded, man. I got downloaded. You got hit with infrasound. I've heard that. You've been infrasounded." I don't know what it is, but somebody tuned me up, cleared my circuit. Something happened. I still have that same feeling that I was telling you about. Like, I don't feel myself. Like I say, am I feverish? I'm not feverish. I didn't feel right inside my own skin since that happened and up until this moment. And I've learned to live with it. It's my new normal. That's another thing I hate hearing, the new normal, but this is my normal as it is. But I've never heard anybody else experiencing anything like that as far as the physical stuff, the vibrating teeth. And it was weird. It's like I had a mouthful of sand. I had grit in my, I hate chipping my teeth. Number one, I hate that. I hate breaking a tooth. But to have that grit in your mouth, and it was from the vibration. It's from my whole body shaking. It was wild. It was wild. So the wildest thing I've ever had happen to me in the woods, period.
I think that the reason that those experiences resonated so deeply with you and stuck with you so deeply is because you are an empath. And as we are all empaths, we are all psychic, the three of us.
Okay.
So I would like to tell you that you need to learn to ground yourself and learn how to push away other people's energies, because then it won't affect you.
I'm in school for that right now. I'm actually I'm in a school right now. I have a friend that is helping me through that, teaching me how to make a bubble around myself, or I think you know what I'm talking about. A barrier, to create a barrier.
For sure.
And I'm learning to not take on somebody's emotions as my own. If I feel an emotion, I have to kind of give myself a checklist. Okay, are you feeling this, or is it something else? But and again, I'm not blaming my failed relationships, but I really think that a lot of the stuff that I had happening in my relationships was me taking on somebody else's energies, taking on what's going on, and not knowing how to process it. And so that's been a tremendous relief there, knowing that, that's why this stuff is, because I've experienced this stuff since I was a little kid. I've seen weird things since I was a little kid. I used to see ghosts as a child, and all sorts of stuff. And when you tell somebody, oh, I touched a Bigfoot, oh, and I saw ghosts too, they go, yeah, sure you did. But I think there's people are I'm not saying, look at me, I'm a conduit, because if I had a choice, I wouldn't really want all this. Sometimes it's a little too overwhelming, to be honest with you. It's not something I really want. But like Ben Parker says to Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And this is a power. Is it a superpower? No, I think we all have this ability. Obviously, you guys, you understand when I say all, I mean all of us collectively as humans have this ability. I think we're each like little crystals. We have our own little channel and our own little vibration, and that's why weird things happen to weird people, and some weird things don't, or weird things don't happen to some people, but some people are weird just being weird. That's how it is.
That's a good way to describe it. I've never heard it like that, but yeah, every crystal gives off its own vibration, and so does every person. So yeah, that's a very good. Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest.
Go ahead.
I'm going to suggest you look up on YouTube Dr. Clive Baxter's work with the Secret Life of Plants, and watch the videos that he was recording in his laboratory in the late 60s. And
Clive Baxter, Baxter, I guess. Is that it?
Yes.
Doctor. Yeah.
Okay.
So check that out, because I think you'll find that interesting, how he was able to see how plants were aware of each other too. And they were acting empathic, sensing what each other felt.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really cool. I'll suggest that to everybody all the time. I have a question here in the chat room. Ceiling Cat is wondering, if you see bears, is that an indication that Bigfoot wouldn't be around? Do they consider them predators?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Bears versus Bigfoot. This is kind of a common question, or common thought. I think if a bear can live and thrive in an environment, a Bigfoot can easily live and thrive in the environment, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're in competition either. I think all animals know who the alpha is in the woods, honestly, and I think that if a bear is around, I think it's a pretty good chance Bigfoot isn't, in my opinion. But that's where I stand with that. I think they're the alpha predator, and all animals know it, big and small.
The Bigfoot's the alpha predator?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're definitely the alpha predator, and I think bears know that. There's a great painting or picture out there, illustration of a bear and a grizzly and a Bigfoot roaring at each other. I don't know if you know the picture I'm talking about, but I'd like to imagine something like that happening. But I think a grizzly's just as leery and wary of a Bigfoot as humans are, or should be.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that 100%. Absolutely. The experience that you described with the chattering of your teeth and hearing the sounds, Tim, I just think that could potentially be what they call being zapped, but maybe it didn't affect you the way, with the infrasound or whatever that is that we hear reports of Bigfoot doing, that energy zap, if that's infrasound or whatever it is, I would guess that that's probably what you experienced.
Well, as a kid growing up on a farm, I've had many accidental and on purpose run-ins with electric fences. And, this zapped me like no electric fence has ever zapped me in my life, And, it really is, it terrified me. And, it is what it is, what's happened. It's made me a lot more aware of my surroundings for sure. But, this world's full of the woo-woo, man. There's a lot of woo-woo here, as you know, that I talk about this a lot. The Bigfoot circles are divided in several camps. There's the science minded versus the woo woo minded. There's the wood ape versus something else, And my thing is that there's a lot of science in the woo woo. It's all science. If you look at it, there's a lot of science in the woo, and there's a lot of woo in the world. So to discount, a few years ago in 2017, that was the year of the big mantra was a united Bigfoot community. I don't know if you remember this, but everybody was talking about we have to have a united Bigfoot community so the science-minded and the woo-woo-minded can come together. And I really think that needs to happen. I'm all ears to listen to science people. I'm all ears. But here's what that falls outside of that realm. Here's what I think, and for them to go, oh, you saw a Bigfoot disappear. You saw a Bigfoot. Oh, okay. Let's discount that guy's. That guy's story. He can't be believable, and I don't understand why you can't put everything out on the table and look at it all because it's all there. I mean, it's a strange. The more I learn about these things, the less I know, and you know what I mean. I get just. I'm always. I don't know. Where'd that go? I don't know. It's weird. It's scary, but it's fun too. It's a lot of fun. But to go out in the woods and get scared to the point where you might have to change your underwear, that part, it's still fun. But I'm scared. I'm not trying to paint no pictures here. I'm no brave soul. I'm shaking and quaking when I'm standing out there, but I fight through it anyways because the alternative doesn't ring with me anymore. I'm tired of being afraid of it. There's a lot of other scarier things in the world than Bigfoot, and they walk on two legs too. I think the scariest thing is mankind, to be honest with you. But anyway,
part of my whole journey of opening my awareness more and becoming more aware of things like that was about looking at science and trying to explain the things that I would sense in a scientific manner, because so many people around me were like, that's crazy, but I would tell them, take your shoes off and walk barefoot on the earth. The earth is giving off an energy that can help to heal you.
Yeah.
And people were like, okay, Jen. And then, 5-6 years later, the scientists come out with, there's something called earthing. Take your shoes off, go barefoot on the earth. The earth is giving off a healing energy. And I'm like, in your face, people, I've been saying that. And,
I'm a big fan of that too, as far as the earthing is concerned, getting your feet out. I like to work out in the yard. If I got to spread mulch, I'm going to do it barefooted. I hate getting it in my shoes and that kind of thing, but getting in the dirt with your feet. And I've had people go, you're going to get plantar's warts from that, and I'm like, what? You're going to do what? What are you talking about? But, people are weird. I think everybody's antibioticed out. I think people are going to die from too much antibacterial soap, to be honest with you. I think the soap's going to kill them before the virus does, But in this day and age that we got going on, so much fear out there. And, I can't believe I'm hiding in what we've put up with the last few months. I mean, I don't know where everybody leans, but I'm not saying the virus isn't real. I've had a good friend that died as a result of it. John Prine, one of my most favorite songwriters, died from. But how many people has the flu killed this year? You never hear anything about the flu. What happened to the flu? Isn't the flu killing people anymore? I want to hear about the flu too. But no flu. It's just weird. I can't deal with the fear. I got enough scary things to live with.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you just have to turn off the television and stop watching the news. You just have to get away, walk away, and go earthing. I've got a book
exactly.
so.
That's right. That's going to be good for you.
Yeah,
very true.
That's right.
Very true. Well, we have just like maybe 5 minutes left of the show, less than 5 minutes. Do you have another story that you want to share with us in that time?
Let's see here. Story. I told you the eye shine story. No, I did. I only told you a part of that eye shine story. Let me tell you, I don't know how you all feel about eye shine. People talk about eye shine being just reflective light, in the eyes of animals and people or whatever. But I've seen the eye shine with no light in front of it. The self-illuminating. I don't know what you want to call it. And there was an incident a few years ago in this area that I talk about all the time that we camped at, where we were watching this shadow with eye shine, yellowish white eye shine, staring at us. And earlier in the day, I have a friend that's an audio guy. He likes to, take his parabolic mics and record audio, and he gets all sorts of. He's got a lot of activity on his property. He doesn't live too far from where I live, and he shared this audio, and what it was something going whoa, just like that, whoa, out in the woods. So we're staring at this shadow. It's Keith and my friend Brian Holcomb and my friend Stuart. There's probably 6 of us Scooby-Doo together here in the dark. My dog Cash there, and we're staring at this silhouette with yellowish white eye shine. Well, after staring at it for a while, I went ahead and went whoa, and the ocular size got bigger. The color turned from a whitish yellowish color to like an amber orange. And Keith said, "Jason, don't do that." He was a little upset with me. And I'm like, well, I'm tired of playing the staring game. I want to learn something, But that was very interesting. There was 6 or 7 of us saw that how big the eyes changed. And they do. Their eyes change color too. People that say they see green eyes, red eyes, yellow eyes, they change. And I think mood and I can only equate it to blood flow. Maybe when you're on alert, I'm sure your heart's up when you're a Bigfoot, and I'm sure there's more blood flow, and that might put more, I don't know, blood flow to the eyes, more oxidation. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but something caused that color to change. We all watched it, so that was an interesting thing, and to happen. But eye shine's a real thing. It's a real deal.
I wonder, I've been looking up information on camouflage. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about the different kind of camouflage. And I'm just wondering if when camouflage happens to an animal, that animal, there's the kind that they automatically fit into the environment so you can't see them. They're like there's another kind that zebras, when they run, so you know what I'm talking about. So there's all these different kinds, and I'm wondering if that, like those other animals, would be changing in some form of, I don't know. What do you think about that? Maybe that sounds silly.
Well, that whole thing about cloaking and, you guys, I think I saw a video in your list of favorites of, I'm not sure who it is, Barb and so that caught the cloaking figure that squats down in the woods. You know what I'm talking about? That the cloaking shot. There's a lot of animals out there that can appear to be invisible, squid and, bugs, and there's certain things that can do it. And there's a lady out there that lives she's out in the Midwest. She's not real big in the circles. She's not real popular. She used to be. I think she got kind of sick of stuff, which sometimes you have to do that. But her name is Pearl Prihoda. Are you familiar with the name Pearl Prihoda? Prihoda. She wrote a book, and I can't think of the title of the book, but she calls it photosynthetic piezoelectric induced transparency, PPIT. You can look it up. You can look at it. She wrote a big, thick, I call her the professor. She's a smart lady. But she says that, these animals can do this thing of, appearing invisible or cloaking or part of something else through diet and, how they process minerals and vitamins and that kind of stuff and how they feed their energies off other, things, crystals, limestone. You guys all know these are all conductors. I've heard of several accounts of Bigfoot activity in cemeteries. Yeah, you got to go. I know.
That music tells us that's the end of the show, but we want to thank you for coming on and joining us tonight. Well, we're hoping you'll come back again sometime. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Okay.